Welcome to episode 2 of Outrageously Evolving with Solara Green and Centauri.
Centauri Green. We're back.
We're back. And this time on episode 2, we want to talk about genius flow. Um, in particular, we've written between us over 20 books in the last 10, 15 years, I would say, which is pretty amazing. And for me, I also took 3 years from 2012 to 2015 to actually research genius, understand genius. I wrote a book on it. I taught courses on it, etc. So for me, genius flow is now an absolute part of my life. It's always switched on. It's not something I have to go get and figure out. It's like a constant flow in me. So I wake up in the morning and go, I think I'd like to write a Facebook post, and it goes and I pick up my phone, put my fingers on the keyboard, and out comes something amazing. The same with when I write books. I don't really know. I have an idea of what I might write. I don't plan it. In fact, I don't want to plan it. I want the genius flow to amaze me. Like it's a combination of something that comes from the greater intelligence, our own greater intelligence, and our inner genius, and it marries up and it comes out of me like in this breathtaking, profoundly life-altering way, I think. And you're the same, Centaur. I've read some of the stuff you've written. It's just breathtaking.
I think when people think about genius, they look to those amazing, monumental craftsmen of the past who've been artists, sculptors, painters, whatever. Of course, Einstein comes to mind with his amazing thoughts and theories. But when you really look at the idea about genius, it is like one person saying, I can't compete on that level of brilliance, of wordsmanship, because I don't feel that I am capable of achieving that level. And so therefore there is a distance created between one person and another person, even if it's unintentional. And I think what we're saying is that genius is for all people. There
Yes.
isn't any one genius. Genius is a collective. Genius is you and I together corresponding on different levels of consciousness, sometimes consciously, sometimes unconsciously, but we're still able to communicate, even in some sort of amazingly telepathic way. And I think what I've said in the past is that whatever you do and whatever you think and whatever you achieve, I also have the same awareness, almost like it comes to me as well as it goes from me to you. So it isn't like there's a division that takes place. You see, that there isn't a barrier.
No.
If you consider there to be a barrier, then there will be a barrier. I can never reach to that level of whatever it is because I do not feel within me I have that propensity to achieve that. What we are really saying then is that genius is a flow. Genius is
Yes.
everywhere. Genius is something that spontaneously happens. Genius is being on this podcast together, unscripted, spontaneous, dynamic, and therefore people will feel an energy rush, perhaps, if they're looking for something spectacular, which directly addresses them in that moment in the way that they feel most effectively moves them. And so therefore it cannot be prescribed ahead of its time. It cannot be said, we are going to now approach this in a particular, what we consider to be genius way. Genius is, it cannot be encapsulated by any particular concept or ways of thinking. It's got to be something which speaks to all people at all times, in all places, in all manner of situations. And therefore, it affects everybody.
Yeah.
It is available to all.
Yes, it is. I think one of the first things I started to do when I started to research it was that most people thought of genius like the Einsteins, the prodigies, or the super well disciplined. But actually, like you're saying, genius exists. It pulses in the air around us. It's like a greater sense of possibility, of writing, of art, of dance, of music, of any form of creation, really, of speaking, of, you know, whatever, designing, innovating ideas. It's a force to me that is us, and it offers excitement. It offers a flow. So if if I was passing on to people a tip of how to do that, it's more like connect with that genius flow that exists in the air around us. It's like, yes, you have a propensity to something, like you might be a great writer, or you might be called to paint, or you might be called to dance or sing or whatever. But if you surrender the knowing of yourself, the knowing of your capacities and your learning and all of that, if you surrender it and you connect to this amazing flow of genius that wants to ripple through you, and it wants to elevate the world into new ideas, new possibilities, just breathtaking moments of awareness and insights and breakthroughs. And I think that's what genius is for. It's meant to move us and elevate us to new horizons of ourself in some way.
Mm. When I'm thinking about in an education setting, then teachers are there to impart wisdom, perhaps. They're there to teach. But the mere fact that you suddenly start to say, I'm going to teach you something, means that that person already doesn't have what it is that you're offering. Whereas I think what we're saying is we are approaching people in a way that says, you already have this. Perhaps you might not be so consciously aware of it as you can be,
Yeah.
but you're already in that situation of being a genius. And I think there's a big distinction there. That thing about being a genius and being a collective genius is something which happens at the same time.
Yes.
Again, there isn't this distinction between I am the genius, you are not the genius, but I will give you something of wisdom that will help you to be the aspiring genius that I hope you will be. I mean, that's a different conversation. That's a different interaction. You've set something up which allows you to be quite distinct from the other person.
Yeah.
What we're saying is you're already in this flow with us. And so therefore, if we're talking about inspiring genius in others, it's about that person being inspired because something is being awoken, or something is being elevated, or something is being directly addressed. And so therefore, the energetic information flow goes, wow, I feel so amazingly elevated somehow from what you say, not from the content of what you're saying, but the way in which you address me, the way in which this energy meets my energy, and we're in a dance together. That I consider to be the genius flow that we're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think this genius flow reaches out to move people, to touch people, to open them up, to elevate them, to connect, and as you say, to soar into that meeting place, genius to genius. You know, and I think it's the genius force or flow is an amazing, I want to almost, for me, I'm going to call it almost a wave to ride. I think you might call it something differently, but for me, it's like a wave pours through me. And that wave accelerates what I would say and do and write or perform anyways. Do you know, it adds an energetic element to it, a profundity to it that I don't think would be there if I was just, writing away on my own kind of thing. It brings something with it that's almost alchemical in nature, I would say.
I think when I start to put my fingers on the keyboard to write something, there isn't anything there at the very beginning when I start to consider what it is I'm going to write about. But it is like I'm plucking things from the air, from here, from there, and they're coming together. You might say an alchemical melting pot, so that the words interlace, they fashion something new, a new idea, a new concept to me for sure. But the way in which the things are brought together, they're bringing all sorts of different elements of understandings together, and then presenting that as something which, again, talks to people in different ways. It is not like I'm writing something, addressing it to children or to adults or to somebody in a particular lifestyle. It's addressing it to all people. It is an endless, timeless thing, so that it will, if somebody reads the writing at a later date, it will come across differently. That's what I mean by timeless. And if the person picks up the writing and they look at it and they have inspirations, well, that to me is also endless. It is just like we are doing things which we don't consciously try to think in any sort of detail about, but nevertheless, the speed in which the things happen, it's almost like unimaginably fast.
Yes.
Things are being brought together and encapsulated in some sort of wondrous, amazing way. And then the words carry such power, such energy, such strength of a conviction in them that people, I think, cannot but be fascinated and awestruck by what it is that's being produced, because it is so innovative, so
Yeah.
exciting. It
Yeah.
is going beyond the idea about being a writer, addressing people to give them information. It is like spontaneously interaction with people over time and space, because what you feel, it is like the breath of life itself gets breathed into a story, gets breathed into all these forms of interactions that you can possibly imagine, and that somehow people are going to find what's being produced, and they're going to be just breathtakingly involved and participants in some sort of amazing adventure with you. And it is born of the genius that we both inhabit.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. Now, if we were just going to wrap this up with like one top tip from each of us as to how others can engage in their genius, I would say surrender what you think you know about yourself and plug into the greater genius flow. And that means that you have a kind of your own innate inner genius is already there, but you kind of plugged that into the flow. So it comes up and you plug into the flow, and then don't try to think out what you're going to do or even plan out what you're going to do. Give it a try. If you're a writer, just put your fingers on the keyboard and let the flow write through you. It is you. It is your genius. It's your essence, your flavor, but just same as an artist, the same as a dancer, just surrender all the tips and techniques and the knowing, and just let the dance, let the flow take you and see what it produces. That would be my tip for accessing genius. How about for you?
I don't think mine would be vastly dissimilar. It is about, I guess, the practice of starting from a blank space and then just allowing things to move from there. So if we take this idea about what it is you're going to write, you don't have any idea about what you're going to write. That's always been my starting place for any of the stories that I've written. But something starts to, because you've become a blank space, something starts to arise in you. And it's almost like you allow it to fill all the spaces. And you are the writer who is writing a masterpiece. And as soon as you get that feeling, you know, wow, I'm going to write something spectacular. And it doesn't matter if what you read back doesn't make any sense or you don't feel inspiration. I can guarantee that other people will be astounded by what it is that you've written
Yeah.
because of the space in which you allow that creative dance to take place.
Yes. Yeah. Beautifully said. Yeah. So if anybody wants to see any of the books we've written, we both have websites, solaragreen.com, centaurigreen.com, and we both have sections on books. So you can find the access to any of our books if you want to just see some examples, or, friend us on Facebook and you'll see how we write posts. Like for me, they just pour out of me quite regularly. And I love that blank space piece because it doesn't happen from the brain.
Mhm.
It's not stored here. It's kind of here it is waiting to flow through you. And then you bring your flavor, your own mastery to it. And for me, you ride the wave. And
I'm
it
just thinking then
creates.
about because I'm doing a Open University degree course and I frequent the forums, and one person was so she was in such a state of almost fearfulness that she has to produce this essay in, and it was 41 days from the moment that post that she put up on the forum. And I said, do not worry. You have 41 days to create the masterpiece of which you will be proud. And I think
Yeah.
that type of coming back to her in that way is almost like gives her the space to breathe, and takes away the fearfulness, the frustration of not being able to complete something in the time period, because then it says to you, you are the person who's going to create this amazing essay, and the time will just stretch out, and
Yeah.
you will be so gratified by the process in which you're now going to take with it, that you will be astounded by what is resulting from that moment. From the
Beautiful.
moment that she reads that post, I could feel the energy with which I was writing the response to her. So I knew that it would have an effect upon her.
Yes. Yeah. Beautiful. Okay. So there you go. That's our wrap up on genius. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll be doing episode 3 sometime in the next week or so, I think, and on one of the exciting topics we've been talking about. And in the meantime, you'll find us on Facebook, you'll find us on YouTube, Patreon, and on Spotify for this podcast. Thanks for watching.
And we look forward to the next one.
Yes.
Goodbye for now.
Bye for now.